This past weekend, my family and I took my granddaughter, my first granddaughter, to college. Now, she has three brothers who have already been to college. Two have graduated. One is still in school. He's a rising senior. And then there is my granddaughter. I went with my family each time to each college or university that my grandchildren attended. And every time they had so much stuff. I don't know why. Kids feel that they have to take the kitchen, the entire kitchen, and the kitchen sink with them when they go away to college. Oh my goodness. My granddaughter had more than ever. She had more than the three boys put together. And believe me, they had a lot of things. But it was a family affair. My daughter has 8 children. So there was she and her husband and the 8 children, that's 10. Then my daughter that I live with and there were 12 of us. Do you know we had 5 cars? It was a caravan taking her back to school. And of course, you can go to my page and see some of the reels that I did of us just taking all of the things out of the car. And it was just remarkable. And I just sat there just looking at the whole family. I was in such pride because knowing that all of my grandchildren, those who are college age, have either been to college or are in college. And then I looked at the 4 younger ones who are to come. So my daughter and son-in-law have a long way to go because the next child is 10 years old. So there's going to be some time in between. Then the youngest is 3. So they're going to be preparing for college for many, many years to come. But maybe by the time the little ones will get ready, they will have some more money saved up. And of course, in most families, the older ones help to take care of the younger ones. And that's what I hope will happen. As I sat there in that small dormitory room, I couldn't imagine how small that room was. It was a small room with 2 beds. And when we went to the door, I said, oh my goodness, how is your stuff going to fit in this room, let alone on your side? My goodness. But I was thinking about the fact that when I went to college years ago, things were so different. And you would expect it to be. Because I was thinking now, that was maybe about 63 years ago. Oh my God, I never thought of how long it has been. And some of you listening to me or watching me right now will say, well, what do you expect? You went to college in the dark ages. And now that I look back on it, it was perhaps the dark ages because my father drove the family car down to Salisbury, North Carolina, where I went to college at Livingstone College. And there were 5 children, 5 of us, and my mother and father. 7 people in the car. And in those days, we didn't have seat belts or anything like that. You just got in the car And you just went. And that's what happened. And now my father liked to travel at night. So he would sleep and he would get up about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. And then he would take us in the car. My mother had like a little lunch for us. Because in those days, those were turbulent times. There was no going to any Holiday Inn or any Days Inn or any Hilton. Black people could not stop along the way. I do remember my father stopping on the side of the road at one point, and he just rested for about an hour. And of course it was dark, and we were kind of scared, but he needed to rest. And so we just did it. There was no 85, 95 was not the way it is now. We had to go down Jeff Davis Highway. I think that was Route 1. And of course, the highway system has made it much easier to get from one town to the other. But back in those days, there were a lot of street lights. So you had to kind of wait and just inch on, inch on, inch on. And that's what we did. But it was just wonderful. And when you are going through something, you don't realize how remarkable it is because you're too young to understand. There was my mom, my dad, my 2 brothers, my 2 sisters, and me. And of course, I'm the oldest, so I was the first one to go to college. We got to Salisbury. We found our way to Livingstone College. We rode up on the campus. Now, mind you, I had never been to Livingstone College, so it was sight unseen. I just knew I was going to go to college. And my pastor had arranged for me to apply to Livingstone and to get accepted because I belong to the denomination that owns Livingstone College, the AME Zion Church. So, of course, when my pastor told my mother and father that's where I was going, he said, oh, she's going to go to Livingstone. And of course, my mother and father didn't know that much about various colleges, so they said, okay. When we got on that beautiful campus, oh my goodness, and got to the dorm, they told us to go to Gola Hall. We got to the dorm, and in those days, there was no such thing as an elevator in a residence hall. But there were male students standing in front of Gola Hall whose job it was to help take the luggage of the young ladies coming to the dormitory up to the 3rd floor. And of course, all of the freshmen lived on the 3rd floor. Do you believe that when I went to college, there was one female residence hall, and that was Gola Hall? The seniors were on the 1st floor because they had gained the prestige to be on that 1st floor. On the 2nd floor were sophomores and juniors. And on the 3rd floor were the freshmen, because we had to walk way up to the top floor. But those young men who were there to take us up to the 3rd floor were just fantastic. They lifted those luggages and took them all the way up to the 3rd floor and took them to the room to which we had been assigned. And then they would yell, "Man on the hall, man on the hall." That was the first time I had heard "man on the hall." And perhaps you said that in your college when there was a young man coming into the residence hall, onto the hall where you lived. Man on the hall. I think about that. I went to my room. Now, mind you, I had one piece of luggage. One piece of luggage and a cosmetic bag to last me the whole year. And of course, when we got our room assignments and went into our rooms, there were 3 of us in a small room. Now, our room was much larger than the room my granddaughter went into when we took her to A&T. Those were small rooms. Our room was a little larger, not that much larger, but there was a double, what do you call the bed on top of the bed? Bunk bed. There was a bunk bed, and then there was a single bed. I got there early, so I got the single bed. And of course, my roommates who came later, they had to get in the bunk beds. And it was fine. We did fine. Imagine 3 girls living in one room like that. And of course, we had one bathroom we called lavatory. We had that on each hall. And of course, our hall was East Hall. And there was no problem with all of the rooms on that hall, with one lavatory, with the shower, the sinks, the toilets. We had no problems because we worked it out among ourselves. If you went there and someone else was taking a shower, maybe you went to the sink and used the sink. Or maybe you jumped into the shower before someone else came. We worked it out. And there was one telephone, a paid telephone in the common hall for, I guess there may have been about 100 girls to use that one phone. And when I think about it today, these girls have cell phones that they can take around with them wherever they go. We had nothing like that. And we had to wait our turn to talk on the pay phone, so that if our parents called us and we weren't in the residence hall at the time, we had to wait and call them later on. We may have gotten them, we may not have. But I just want you to see how things have changed so much. And of course, our campus was just beautiful. It was a small campus. There were other residence halls for the men. I think we must have had more men than women because we had 2 residence halls for the men and 1 for the women. Of course, there was another one built for the women before I left the campus, before I graduated. Those were good times back in those days. And of course, young people today have good times too. We could not bring a car. We couldn't drive cars our freshman or sophomore year. But kids today take their cars to school. Now, on some campuses, I understand they're not allowed to bring a car if they are freshmen, but they still enjoy themselves in other ways. I tell you, there's nothing like the college experience. And I know a lot of people are saying today, well, everybody's not college material. Well, that is true. But there are colleges that accept young people who have potential. They don't have to be the most brilliant, but they have stick-to-itiveness. They try hard, and there is a college for them. But of course, not everybody goes to college, and there's nothing wrong with that. Because in some cases, those who don't go to college are making more money long-term throughout life than those who do go to college. So it's just 6 on one hand and half dozen on the other. But I think what I'm trying to say is that there is so much to learn when you're away from home. So many trials and tribulations and challenges our young people go through that we never know about. But it's interesting for them. We bless them. We just say prayers over each and every young person who is away from their parents. God is with them. God will bless them, and He will undergird them and give them peace and strength.